Hello, and today I'd like to talk about the Pilot Custom 823, and I will talk about the pen itself first before I give you guys some of my opinions on the pen. So first of all, here is the box that it comes in. Most of them come in a big gift box that is satin wrapped on the bottom with a gift bottle of ink and the pen itself, but mine came in this box because I bought it on the streets of Osaka at a 20% discount. So I got this for a steal. So I don't mind the fact that the box is somewhat simple. And here is the pen itself. I think this is a very good looking pen. Of course, as you can tell, this is the amber version. Very appealing to the eye. Here's the pen itself. We have this iconic Pilot clip with the ball on the back. Pretty flexible. Not one of the most flexible I've ever seen, but it's good enough. Then we have a few gold rings here. Over here on the cap band, it says Pilot, made in Japan, 3 stars, and custom 823. And the front finial is just amber plastic in the same color as the pen itself. Same for the vacuum turning knob on the back. And the pen barrel is transparent amber, which the whole pen's plastic, obviously. And the section is nice and not too small. It's nicely sized with some nice threads and a gold ring. And this is also amber plastic. Now you do notice that the plastic on the top finial here, the piston knob or the vacuum knob, and the section are all solid amber. Solid colors, opaque, whereas the cap and the barrel themselves are translucent or transparent. Also a look inside the cap, and you can see there is a sleeve that prevents the nib from drying out, and the nib itself in question, here it is. Here is the 14 karat gold nib. This in particular is a medium nib. I like the engravings stamped onto the nib, but this isn't the best I've ever seen, but I will say it is aesthetically pleasing, and I do think that the gold trim matches the overall amber classy look of the pen very well. And of course, on the back here, since this is indeed a vacuum fill, you can go ahead and untighten this knob, pull it. This creates a vacuum inside, and pump it down. And this will draw ink to about here. Not a full fill, but a very decent fill. You don't need to fill this to the top here. And of course, being a vacuum filler, a Japanese vacuum filler, you can go ahead and tighten this knob here to stop ink flow to the front of the pen. And that's good for if you have long sessions of time where you don't write with a pen. And you can just tighten this knob and the pen will not dry out that easily. But I will say the threads on the back here are a little bit fragile, and I will talk about this in my opinions of the pen as well. So that's basically the pen itself. Let's go ahead and compare it with a few other pens. First of all, here is a Lamy Safari. You can see ever so slightly longer than a Lamy Safari, and in terms of width, this pen is not particularly thick. I find it to be just average. It's not a girthy pen. Compared with a Pelikan M1000, you can see this pen is actually longer than the Pelikan. But in terms of thickness, it's not even a close match at all. And the Lamy 2000 here, longer than the Lamy 2000, and a little bit thicker, but that's not saying much because this is a not very, but quite thin pen. So the size of this pen, I feel, is actually perfect for me personally, and I've seen a lot of reviews online, and most people think this is the perfect size for them. And unposted, this is, in terms of weight and size, perfect for my hand. There is not a single pen I own that feels more natural to me in my hand than this pen. I can vouch for that for sure. Like the Pelikan, I love the Pelikan, but it is ever so slightly too big. This pen just really disappears in the hand, and it really just fits it perfectly. It's like it's a natural bond to your hand. And this kind of pushes me into the opinion part of this video. So the things I like and the things I don't like about this pen, and do forgive me, I have this written down. So I'll go into the things I do like first. So the build quality is good. Like, you can feel this is high quality plastic. Everything's solid, nothing shakes, nothing rattles. Everything is fitted together nicely, and it just feels like a solid pen. It is a smooth writer when it is perfect. I will explain what I mean by that later, but it is a very smooth writer and the flow is just right. It is also a vac filler, which means that it has high capacity ink, and it's just, honestly, it's a fun gimmick. You know, having a vac filler is kind of way more fun than having to use an ink converter, piston converter, sorry, to have to screw and then pull the ink up. It's a lot more fun when you have a vacuum filler. And it's also very easy to disassemble and clean, because everything you see here, and I do mean everything, comes apart, right? The clips comes off, this front finial comes off along with this ring. From that you can push out this sleeve, so any ink that's caught in the cap, you can clean it out easily. The nib comes off, it's friction fit, so it can be a bit tough, but it does come off. The section comes off, the piston rod comes off, the ring here comes off, the ring here comes off. In fact, so much comes off of this pen that you have to be careful not to lose it. For example, I lost the O-ring on the feet of this pen once, and that wasn't fun. So there's that. Now, the last thing is, like I said, a great size and weight, fits naturally into your hand. Really just the perfect size and the perfect weight. But the problems I've had with this pen, and this might be a bit more personal, my pen came with flow issues, and that's due to two reasons. First was my tines. The tines on my nib were too close together, right? Because they were supposed to be like this, it was like that, so there was no ink basically getting through unless I pressed down hard, which is really frustrating. And the second thing was, even after I fixed my tine problem, I still had a bit of flow with the feed, right? But that kind of disappeared after I changed inks, which I'm a bit confused about, and now I went back to the same ink that I used when I first had the flow issues, and the problem was gone. And the last thing is that this pen is somewhat fragile. Like I told you guys just now, the threads here are somewhat fragile. The threads up here are also a little fragile, and I've seen a lot of people online say that the pen cracks on top, on the cap, on the barrel. Like, there's small cracks, they're not going to cause any functional problems in the short run, but they will look kind of unappealing, and give it a few decades, the pen will probably break. So that's all I have to say about this pen. Let's get into the writing sample. Okay, time for the writing sample, and I just wanted to quickly show you guys that ink sloshing around in the pen, that beautiful purple ink sloshing around the amber pen body. I think that's just absolutely beautiful. But here we have the Pilot Custom 823, and this is a medium, except given the line variation, which is, I wouldn't say a medium, I would be more inclined to call this perhaps a fine or a medium fine. And the ink here we have is Pilot. Actually, why did I write Pilot again? But okay, Pilot Iroshizuku Yama Budou. Well, actually, it's just Yama Budou, but in Romaji by right, you should write it like Budou, but it's okay. Nobody really, that doesn't matter. And here is the famous quote: "The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog." Do forgive me for the subpar handwriting. I can't really write when I speak or record. But anyway, here is the line variation, which there's not much. Like, I'm already pushing it way more than I should. And in terms of line variation, in terms of flex, this pen just doesn't have much to offer. As you can see, you can't really make out much of a difference. In terms of wetness, you know, it's moderately wet. It's not too wet, it's not too dry. And I think that's great. In terms of good flow, I don't think a pen with good flow should be too wet or too dry, right? A pen that's very wet doesn't really indicate a pen that has very good flow. I think this is just nice, it's just adequate, it's perfect for everyday use. And here is fast writing, no skipping, none of that, as long as you didn't have issues like I did when I first got this pen. Like I mentioned, you know, the tines and the feed. If this pen has no issues, it's just a brilliant writer, brilliant workhorse pen. Like I said, relatively stiff nib, nice flow, not too wet, not too dry. Like, that's just the perfect recipe for a pen which you can write with for a long time on basically any type of paper. I think this is going to be a great workhorse pen for most people. So yeah, that's about it.